Today we're breaking down the 10 best defenders from our recently published HoopsHype Defensive 78 list. Check the description to see the full rankings. At HoopsHype, we maintain several all-time rankings, including the HoopsHype 78 for the top NBA players and the HoopsHype International 78 for foreign stars. These lists are updated annually in the offseason, adding one player and adjusting rankings based on major achievements. You bet Nikola Jokic will climb in both rankings soon, making them the HoopsHype 79 and the HoopsHype International 79. With that in mind, we recently introduced the HoopsHype Defensive 78, ranking the greatest defenders in NBA history. Just like the others, we conducted a team vote among multiple HoopsHype staff members, discarded the highest and lowest rankings for each player, and assigned points based on the remaining placements. Keep in mind that the longevity matters in these rankings. While Victor Wembanyama may have the potential to top this list one day, his career is just too young to be included. Now let's dive into the top 10 defenders of all time. Like the video if you enjoyed, comment whether you agree or disagree, and subscribe to HoopsHype for more NBA content. 10. Dwight Howard. A monstrous player in his prime, future Hall of Famer Dwight Howard was a defensive eraser in the paint, one who made a living blocking shots. Howard won Defensive Player of the Year 3 seasons in a row from 2009 to 2011, a stretch that saw him average almost 3 blocks and 1.1 steals per game, and led the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals once. That 2009 Magic team boasted the best defense in the league, allowing just 101.3 points per 100 possessions, and a lot of that was contributed to Howard's elite level of rim protection, which would deter opponents from attacking the paint when he was in the game. Howard's freakish athleticism at the 5 spot at a 6'9" frame with a massive wingspan allowed him to block shots from all over the floor. Number 9, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, aka Lou Alcindor. Possessing outrageous longevity, the 6-time NBA MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was an 11-time All-Defensive Team member, the 3rd highest mark in NBA history. That was 5 times as a first teamer, 6 times as a second teamer, and he never won Defensive Player of the Year, but that was largely part due to the fact that the award didn't even exist until 83, and by then, Abdul-Jabbar was squarely in his mid-30s. Blocks also weren't an official statistic until 73-74, Abdul-Jabbar's 5th season in the NBA, but even then, he still led the league in nightly rejections 4 times in his career. Despite the first 4 seasons of his career not being counted, Abdul-Jabbar also ranks 3rd all-time career blocks at 3,189. Through 74 to 77, the first 4 years of Abdul-Jabbar's career where blocks were tracked, he blocked 1,094 shots. If we simply added those to the overall total, he would be at 4,283 swats away, a mark that would have him shatter Elijah Wan's all-time record of 3,830. If we don't count non-Russell, non-Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is probably the all-time shot blocker in history. Even in the 80s, past his athletic prime, the Showtime Lakers, Abdul-Jabbar averaged 2 blocks per game, a large factor into LA's dynasty of that decade. Number 8, Dikembe Mutombo. No, that's the day. Unlike some other players on this list so far, Hall of Famer center Dikembe Mutombo was more of a pure defensive specialist with less of an offensive game to speak of. Still, he was such a good defender and likable player overall, with the popular finger wag after block shots and all, that he made 8 All-Star appearances in his career anyway, despite averaging more than 13.8 points per game just once during his time in the NBA. Mutombo's defense was also quite impactful, as the big man led the league in blocks 3 times in his career, including the 95-96, where he averaged an astonishing 4.5 blocks per game. That was the 6th highest single-season block average in the league history. Mutombo was such a good shot blocker with an excellent length and timing on block attempts that even as a 37-year-old in 2003-04, he was averaging almost 2 blocks per game. Mutombo ranks 2nd all-time in total blocks at 3,289. Number 7, Ben Wallace. At 6'9", he is one of the greatest all-time stories for an undrafted player. Before we start his story, hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this. Now, 2004 NBA champion Ben Wallace won Defensive Player of the Year 4 times in his career, sweeping the award every year besides one from 2001 to 2006. That one year he didn't win in that stretch, the 03-04 season, he finished 2nd in the vote, and the Detroit Pistons won the title that year. So Wallace could take solace in that too. Wallace is tied for the most Defensive Player of the Year honors in league history with 2 other centers, both coming up later on this list, so stick around for that. He didn't have the perfect size for a center at 6'9", but he had the unbelievable instincts on that end of the floor, played with a tenacity that few in the NBA could rival. He was also outrageously quick for his position, making him a great switch defender and creating one of the league's best of all time defenses in Detroit during his peak. Wallace ranks 14th all-time in block shots with 2,137, enjoying a 3-year stretch in the early 2000s where he averaged 3.2 nightly shots blocked. Number 6, Scottie Pippen, the greatest Robin to a Batman in NBA history, as well as the greatest wing defender in NBA history. At least according to us, 6-time NBA champion Scottie Pippen is one of the most impactful players of all time, because without him, would there even have been a Chicago Bulls dynasty in the 90s to speak of? Pippen finished with all-defensive team honors 10 times in his career, the 2nd most for a non-big man ever. He was a first-team all-defender 8 times, likewise the 2nd most ever for a non-big man. Like Duncan, Pippen never won Defensive Player of the Year, but he did finish 2nd in the vote twice, back-to-back years in 95-96. To this day, Pippen ranked 8th all-time in career steals at 2,307, just rising considering his elite lateral athleticism, an outstanding size 6'8" and a length at a reported 7'3" wingspan. All in all, with those physical gifts, Pippen would have thrived in any era as a defender, including today's high-scoring NBA. Number 5, Dennis Rodman. Rodman. An important factor in getting defense stops in the NBA is finishing the possession with a rebound. Few players in modern NBA history have been better at that than Hall of Fame big man Dennis Rodman. Rodman had a 7-year stretch in which he led the league in rebounding every season, peaking in 91-92 at 18.7 boards nightly, which is insane. But purely as a defender, Rodman was also so special. He had the elite strength to slow down opposing centers, a much more important trait back in his era, as well as the lateral quickness, lightning fast hands when tasked with switching. Rodman was named Defensive Player of the Year twice in his career, back-to-back seasons in 1990 and 1991. He was also a part of two different historically great teams, first with the Bad Boy Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s, and then with obviously the Bulls, where he also made an impact on 5 separate championship teams with his intense defense, with his ability to get under his foe's skin. Number 4, Kevin Garnett. Duncan is the leader in all defensive team appearances, but his chief rival at power forward in the 2000s, Kevin Garnett, the all-time leader in first-team all-defensive appearances with 9 such honors in his 21 seasons. If you want to build the most impactful defender you could in a lab, your final product might look like Kevin Garnett. One day, we'll definitely be saying that about Victor Wembanyama. Size, he had it at 6'11". Length, he had that too, 7-foot plus wingspan. Intensity, he was a menace. Garnett had that in spades. Quickness, despite being a power forward, he had near guard-like lateral quickness. A 12-time all-defender in the NBA, Garnett's instincts, effort, hustle, and elite athleticism made him one of the most impactful defensive players in the NBA has ever seen. One who could defend the rim, jump the passing lanes, and play tough one-on-one post defense. I just want to say I voted him number 1, but we take out the number 1 vote, so technically didn't count, but KG's number 1 in my eyes. 3, Tim Duncan. The all-time leader in all defensive team honors, the legendary power forward Tim Duncan earned the distinction an astonishing 15 times in his career. 8 times as a first-teamer, 7 times as a second-teamer. That's 15 times in a 19-year career. A ridiculous level for any player to attain. One is harder to believe in hindsight, especially with the longevity. Even more unbelievable is despite that Duncan made the all-defensive teams in his career, he never won Defensive Player of the Year. One of the most shocking bits of trivia in NBA history. He never even finished second in the vote either. He finished third twice in 2001 and 2007. Regardless, Duncan ranks 5th in NBA history in total blocks at 3,020, as he had a fantastic display of instincts and the ability to protect the paint with that nice length and a reported 7'5" wingspan to make him a great shot swatter. Even at 36 in 2012 to 2013, he was averaging almost 3 blocks a game. And Duncan helped lead the Spurs to 5 championships during his 19 seasons, a number that would have been very difficult to achieve without having a great defender at the power forward position and then eventually at the center position. Now, of course, coming at 2, Hakeem Olajuwon. Few players in NBA history can say they made an impact like Hall of Fame center Hakeem Olajuwon, an all-time player who thrived in the 80s and 90s. Olajuwon earned first-team all-defensive honors 5 times, second-team all-defensive honors another 4 times, the latter honor coming as late in his career as 1995-96 and the 96-97 when he's already in his mid-30s. Olajuwon ranks first all-time in total blocks to this day, finishing his career with a ridiculous 3,830 rejections. He was more than just a shot blocker, however, as he was also extremely nimble for a center, as evidenced by the Houston Rockets' legendary average of 1.7 steals per game for his career. Olajuwon is actually the only player to ever rank top 10 in blocks, steals, and defensive rebounds. His defense was hugely impactful to winning too, as it led the Rockets 3 finals trips and 2 championships. And number 1, Bill Russell. 11-time NBA champion, 5-time MVP, Bill Russell was known for his rebounding, playmaking, and most of all, his defense. Even taking the era he played into account, which I think would just make him like Draymond Green, but that's another argument, we can still come up with Russell being the best defender in NBA history, leading the way to a record amount of championships for Boston. We obviously don't have any official data on, nor were defensive accolades a thing until very late on in his career. Even then, Russell has won first-team all-defensive selection in his career, coming in 68, 69 when he was already 34, and so we mostly fall back to video evidence. Celtics Sam Jones said Russell's mere presence would have opponents settling for mid-range jumpers and attacking the rim. Quote, everybody was just afraid of Russell, including the guys who were just shooting from outside. When they wanted to go in and take a layup, they knew they were not going to get a layup, so they would stop short and take a jump shot. He just intimidated people, end quote, Sam Jones said via Sporting News. Another Hall of Fame teammate of Russell's, Bob Cousy, also compared the center to a man playing amongst boys in the era due to his intensity, speed, and quickness. Considering Russell was a reported 6'10" with a 7'4" wingspan with a freak athlete, Russell once told Kendrick Perkins on Twitter that he was an Olympic-level high jumper in his heyday. That might not be too far off the truth. With his IQ, his notorious ability to block shots, and one real GM poster went back through all the old newspaper articles to give a rough estimate of the type of block numbers Russell might have put up, coming up with 8.1 blocks in a sample size of 135 games. Obviously, that's an insane number, but with the game being so mundane in terms of what they were playing, he had a career spanning 963 games, so 135 games is a decent but not great sample size for Russell's time in the NBA. Even so, Russell was one of the most impactful players defensively in terms of winning. So he earns the top spot in our ranking of greatest defensive players of all time.